Last Christmas, my world fell apart in a way I never thought possible, all because of lies spun by my Aunt Karen. My name is Alex, I'm 19, and I never imagined I'd be writing about how false accusations shattered my family and left me standing alone in the cold, literally. I grew up in Minnesota, in what I believed was a tight-knit family. My parents, my younger sister Marissa, and I lived just a few blocks away from my dad's brother, Uncle Sebastian, and his wife, Karen. Karen joined the family when I was 8, and from the start, she always had to be the center of attention. She'd steal the spotlight at birthdays, hijack celebrations with dramatic announcements, or feign illness if conversations drifted away from her. But she made Sebastian happy, so we all learned to tolerate her theatrics. I've always been the quiet, studious type. In high school, I got good grades, worked part-time at a grocery store, and spent my free time playing video games. My sister Marissa, on the other hand, was the social butterfly, always surrounded by friends and active in school. Our parents were supportive, if a bit overprotective, especially with Marissa. Life was predictable, even comfortable, until everything unraveled. Last summer, my family rented a beach house in Florida. About halfway through the trip, I got a terrible sunburn and had to stay inside while everyone else went to the beach. I spent that day holed up in my room, playing my Nintendo Switch, only coming out briefly for snacks or bathroom breaks. Karen was the only other person in the house, but I barely saw her. At the time, it seemed like just another day. Months passed. I went off to college in September and came home for Thanksgiving without any issues. I was excited to spend Christmas break with my family, unaware that my life was about to implode. Karen and Sebastian arrived early on Christmas Day to help with preparations. The house buzzed with the usual holiday energy, my mom cooking her traditional roast, my dad cracking his corny jokes, and Marissa sneaking texts to her friends under the table. Everything felt normal, until dinner. Karen, usually the loudest voice in the room, was strangely quiet. When my mom asked if she was okay, Karen suddenly broke into uncontrollable sobs, tears far more intense than her usual theatrics. The room fell silent as we all turned to her, concerned. Uncle Sebastian tried to console her, and through her tears, she said she'd been keeping a terrible secret that was tearing her apart. Then she looked directly at me. She accused me of trying to assault her during our Florida trip. She claimed that while everyone else was at the beach, I had cornered her in the kitchen and tried to force myself on her. Her words were a punch to the gut. I could barely breathe as she described graphic details of something that never happened. She cried about how she'd lived in fear, unable to sleep, haunted by the memory of that day. My mom was in hysterics. My dad turned a terrifying shade of red. Uncle Sebastian looked ready to attack me. When I tried to defend myself, Karen cut me off, screaming that predators always deny their actions. She claimed to have text messages from that day proving her distress, though she conveniently couldn't find them. The next hour is a blur. I tried to explain that I'd been in my room all day, that I had no history of problems with Karen. I pointed out how it made no sense for me to suddenly act this way and why she'd waited 6 months to say anything. No one listened. My dad grabbed me by my shirt and physically threw me out of the house into the freezing snow, locking the door behind me. I didn't even have my coat. Through the window, I saw Marissa trying to speak up for me, asking the same questions I had, but my mom screamed at her to go to her room. I stood there, numb, watching my family turn their backs on me. My phone calls to them went unanswered, blocked. If it weren't for Marissa, I don't know what I would have done. She climbed out her bedroom window, bringing me some clothes and $400 from her savings. She was the only one who believed me, but she was just a kid, powerless to change anything. I spent the night in a cheap motel, struggling to comprehend how my life had fallen apart. The next morning, my best friend Mike offered me a place to stay. Meanwhile, Karen played the victim, telling anyone who would listen about the monster she claimed I was. My parents backed her story, turning relatives against me. My grandparents sent a message saying they were ashamed to call me their grandson. My cousins blocked me on social media. Marissa kept me updated as best she could, but our parents began monitoring her phone, cutting off most of our communication. They even threw out my childhood photos and started converting my room into an office, as if erasing me from their lives. Then, out of nowhere, I got a message on Reddit from my cousin James. I hadn't seen him in years, not since he left the family abruptly when I was 14. Back then, we were told he'd gotten into trouble and run away. But now, James revealed the truth. Karen had done the same thing to him. 5 years ago, she accused him of groping her during a family barbecue. The family turned on him just as they had with me. He was kicked out, disowned, and forced to rebuild his life in California. The parallels between our stories were chilling. Karen had accused James after he caught her flirting with one of Sebastian's friends. It dawned on me. Karen used these accusations to maintain control and protect her secrets. Now, I'm left trying to pick up the pieces of my life. I've found a small apartment and taken 2 jobs to stay afloat. Marissa is my only connection to the family I once had, and even that's tenuous. But I won't stop fighting for the truth. I was out at the mall one afternoon, doing some last-minute Christmas shopping, when I saw her, Karen, having lunch with a man who was clearly not Uncle Sebastian. They were sitting in a secluded corner booth, and her hand rested casually on his arm. The sight of them together struck me as odd, but at the time, I brushed it off. When she noticed me, her eyes widened for a moment, but then she waved as if everything was perfectly fine. I didn't think too much about it then, but James later told me that Karen had done the same thing to their cousin, Amy, who moved to Europe 3 years ago. Now we're starting to see the pattern. Anyone who could expose her secrets becomes a target. She uses these false accusations as a way to keep herself in control, knowing that once she throws that bomb, the accused person will be immediately ostracized without a chance to defend themselves. I try to tell my parents about the conversation I had with James, reaching out from different numbers, but they blocked every attempt to contact them. Marissa, however, says they've convinced themselves that both James and I are simply lying, trying to discredit Karen because we were troubled kids who couldn't handle the family's discipline. To make matters worse, Mom joined an online support group for parents of problematic children and spent hours every day sharing posts about how she missed the warning signs and what a failure she was as a parent. It was heartbreaking to hear how my family completely rewrote their memories of me. Through Marissa, I learned that they now describe me as a difficult, rebellious child, creating stories about temper tantrums and fights that never happened. The truth is, I was a normal kid. Good grades, part-time job, never in trouble. The worst thing I did in school was get a detention in 8th grade for forgetting my gym clothes. But none of that mattered now. They had created this false narrative to justify why they were willing to believe Karen's lies over their own son's innocence. For the first time since that night in the snow, I broke down. It wasn't just the pain of losing my family. It was the realization that Karen had systematically destroyed multiple lives to protect her lies. James, who has been through something very similar, said it gets easier with time. He built a good life in California, but right now, everything still feels divided between before and after that Christmas dinner. All I can do is keep working, keep studying, and hold on to the hope that eventually the truth will come to light. Then, just 2 days ago, everything exploded. The truth about Karen's deceit came to light, and it was far worse than any of us had imagined. Uncle Sebastian caught her with Mark, his best friend, at their lake house. He had shown up unexpectedly after a canceled business meeting and found them together in the master bedroom. Karen tried to play it off, claiming it was the first time and that Mark had manipulated her. But Mark's wife, Sarah, had already found Karen's secret phone, hidden in the glove compartment of her car. The phone was a Pandora's box. Inside were messages dating back over 3 years, not just with Mark, but with at least 3 other men. Karen hadn't been having a one-time affair. She had been leading a double life. The phone revealed hotel receipts, secret email accounts, even a hidden credit card that Sebastian knew nothing about. But the most damning evidence was in her messages. She had been methodically targeting family members who might expose her lies. Before accusing me at Christmas, she had texted one of her affair partners, panicking about me seeing her at the mall. She was already planning how to make sure I wouldn't be believed if I ever spoke up. She had done the same thing to James, to Amy, and countless others before. When Sebastian called me, he was a wreck. He apologized over and over, telling me that he had found Karen's journal in her desk, where she had detailed all her plans to isolate and destroy anyone who posed a threat to her secrets. She specifically mentioned accusing me, knowing my parents would believe her without question. She referred to it as her nuclear option, an accusation that would immediately remove any threat to her web of lies. The journal was chilling. She had even planned to make her accusation at Christmas dinner, knowing it would be more dramatic. She had practiced crying in front of a mirror to make it more convincing. She found sick pleasure in watching my life fall apart, seeing it as a warning to anyone else who might think about exposing her. And there were entries about other family members she had targeted, with a list of cousins and their secrets she could use against them. She was like a spider, spinning a web of lies and manipulating everyone around her for her own amusement. My parents still haven't directly spoken to me, but they've started asking questions. Marissa says Mom has been crying constantly ever since Sebastian told them about the journal. Dad, upon learning of Karen's manipulation, apparently punched a hole in the wall. But none of that changes anything for me. The truth about Karen has come out, and Sebastian is filing for divorce. His lawyer says she won't get anything because of all the evidence of her affairs and manipulations. She tried to deny the journal's authenticity, claiming Sebastian and Sarah were setting her up, but more proof kept coming out. Other affair partners have started to speak out. It turns out she's been doing this for years, systematically destroying people's lives to cover her tracks. Now the extended family is reaching out to apologize, begging for forgiveness. Even my parents have been camping outside my apartment, hoping I'll agree to talk to them. They've spent days telling me how sorry they are, how they failed as parents, and how they want to make things right. But their apologies feel hollow. After 6 months of treating me as if I didn't exist, how can they suddenly expect everything to be okay? They didn't even give me a chance to explain myself. They didn't question Karen's story. They simply chose to believe her over me. Sorry doesn't erase the months of pain, the lost tuition, or the nights I spent hungry because I could barely afford food. Sorry doesn't take back the betrayal. Marissa still visits me regularly. She's the only family member I've let back in because she never doubted me. She's told me how Mom has completely broken down after reading Karen's journal entries, how Dad reacted with fury when he realized how easily he had been manipulated. But none of that changes the fact that they chose to believe Karen's lies over their own son. I've been doing well despite everything. I was promoted to shift supervisor at the warehouse, and my online classes are going great. Mike's family continues to support me, and I'm even dating someone I met at my second job. It's still new, but I'm starting to rebuild. Yesterday, I sent my parents a message through Marissa. I told them that I don't want a relationship with them right now. Maybe one day, that will change, but for now I need to protect myself. They made their choice last Christmas, and now they have to live with the consequences. James told me I'm doing the right thing. He tried reconciling with his parents after everything came out, but the trust never returned. You can't unknow what your parents are capable of. You can't forget how easily they turned on you. Karen showed us all how meaningless blood ties can be. She proved that people will believe the worst about you, even if they claim to love you. That's not something you can just forget. I'm not angry anymore. I'm just tired. Tired of the endless messages asking for forgiveness. Tired of the excuses. Tired of being told I need to fix what they broke. So, I'm moving forward. I'm focusing on work, on school, and on building something new. The family that chose to believe Karen, they can live with their choice. I've had to live with the consequences of their actions, and now, so will they. Sometimes, the only way to heal is to walk away, even from the people who raised you.